Welcome, focus learners. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating explainer that offers a philosophical diagnosis of agricultural crises. If you've ever wondered why farming economies seem to just constantly go through these extreme boom and bust cycles, this source material provides a deeply thought-provoking, completely internal perspective on the issue. We're going to explore a lecture that argues the true cause of our farming woes actually isn't in the soil at all, it's in the mind. Seriously, why do farmers destroy their own crops when prices fall? It's a shocking image, right? We've all seen it in the news, acres of perfectly good produce literally being plowed under while market prices just plunge. It seems totally counterintuitive. I mean, why destroy perfectly good food when it could be eaten? Well, this explainer is going to dig into the mystery behind this destructive reaction, and we're going to trace it back to a pretty surprising root cause that the original speaker believes is basically infecting the entire industry. To really wrap our heads around this, the speaker in our source material shares this striking personal anecdote. So during a massive cabbage price crash, he visited a ruined field that was just about to be plowed under. He actually went up and asked the owner if he could just take maybe one or two cabbages to eat before they were completely destroyed. And the farmer's response? He flatly refused. He essentially said, with real bitterness, "No, I'm plowing it under. If I fail, you deserve to fail too." Now, this hostile reaction, the speaker argues, hits the nail on the head regarding a much deeper mindset issue. It's not just about economics anymore. It's about a pretty dark shift in human intention. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how the lecture defines the root of this destructive mindset. It's simple but profound: greed. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it defines it in a very specific agricultural context. The argument here is that the true root cause of agricultural collapse is farming driven primarily by desire for massive financial profit, rather than the pure, foundational purpose of just growing food. When farming becomes purely about extracting wealth, the source claims, it literally violates the fundamental laws of nature and sets the whole stage for an inevitable collapse. The lecture contrasts two very different archetypes to illustrate this. On one side, you have the true farmer. This is someone completely aligned with nature who views farming as a pure calling, actually feeling genuine gratitude for the land they work. Then, in stark contrast, you have the speculator. This is someone entirely profit-driven, treating farming merely as a corporate business, or worse, a get-rich-quick scheme. The lecture neutrally posits that modern agriculture has largely been hijacked by that speculator archetype. People are trying to run farms strictly to amass huge wealth. And according to the speaker, this total misalignment is exactly where the entire system starts to fracture. Okay, think about the number 2 for a second. Just 2. The source material points out a fascinating, almost unbelievable historical contrast. Back in the day, raising just 1 or 2 cows, or maybe selling a small basket of apples at the local market, was actually enough for humble farmers to successfully send their kids all the way through university. No way, right? How is that even possible on such tiny margins? Well, the speaker argues it was simply because their intentions were pure. They weren't out there trying to build massive empires, they were honestly working the land to support their families. And because of that, nature supported them right back. Historically, we can trace this shift in a few distinct phases. Step 1 was all about pure sustenance. Farmers raised a few animals purely to feed their families. Step 2 brought success in education. Because their work was honest, they successfully raised and educated their children. But then came step 3. This was a dramatic shift. Farming suddenly transformed from humble sustenance into a speculative endeavor aimed at massive wealth. People started raising huge herds of cattle, not to feed the local community, but to get incredibly rich. And that leads directly to step 4, the current agricultural crisis we see today, completely defined by constant volatility and pain. Interestingly, this physical shift on the farms was accompanied by a fascinating psychological shift in the farmers themselves. One farmer actually summed it up perfectly. Our kids are grown, now we just need to not starve. The speaker identifies this specific thought pattern among older generations of farmers once their kids' education was done. They kind of lost their driving, pure purpose of nurturing the next generation. Instead, they adopted a stagnant mindset solely focused on basic, minimal survival. They essentially just gave up their active ambition. So the crucial point is right here. This is where the lecture introduces a really profound, almost mystical philosophy regarding what it calls the law of nature. It argues that nature actually, literally, responds to human intention. Because these farmers collectively shifted to a mindset of, hey, we just need to not starve, nature gave them exactly what they asked for: basic survival, but absolutely nothing more. They asked for just enough to eat, and the universe basically said, Okay, causing their financial growth and vitality to completely flatline. And that stagnation eventually led to panic, which triggered a really predictable and tragic downward spiral. Let's walk through it. It starts with those pure intentions in the past. But then, feeling squeezed or maybe just tempted, farmers shift to seeking massive profit, taking huge speculative risks. As a consequence of this unnatural greed, boom, prices plunge. Then, in a desperate scramble to continually fund their grown children or maintain this new lifestyle, farmers resort to selling off their land. Ultimately, the speaker argues, this continuous cycle just leads to complete ruin. It's a tragic progression driven entirely by losing sight of their core, honest purpose. And this brilliantly illustrates how this unseen law of nature actually operates. It has a few core principles. First, it reacts directly to our intentions. It actively supports pure sustenance and honest work, while actively punishing unnatural greed and speculative hoarding. But here's the most fascinating part. The speaker claims nature actually grants intuition and wisdom to true farmers. Like, a farmer with pure intentions will just intuitively know exactly what crop to plant for the coming season, without needing any complex market calculations. Their wisdom comes directly from their pure alignment with the land itself. So, what does this all mean? When this inevitable crisis hits, when the prices absolutely bottom out and the crops are just left rotting in the fields, who is to blame? I want you to honestly think about where your mind usually goes during economic hardships. Do you automatically blame the politicians, the trade policies, maybe the big grocery monopolies? The source material is explicitly 100% clear on this front. Do not blame the government. Do not blame corporate executives. Do not blame society. Impartially speaking, the lecturer strongly advises against pointing fingers at any external socioeconomic or political forces. According to this philosophy, constantly blaming the outside world for our agricultural and financial failures completely misses the actual root cause and basically prevents any real, lasting recovery from happening. Instead, the ultimate solution offered here is purely internal. You have to fix your own mindset and intentions before blaming the outside world. The speaker is making a really profound call for personal responsibility here. The argument is that until farmers, and really, by extension, any of us facing systemic failures, realign themselves with a pure, honest purpose rather than speculative greed, the environment is simply not going to support them. It's all about returning to a state of gratitude and respecting the specific role you are meant to play in the ecosystem. Which brings us to our final, pretty provocative question for today. Are we living as true humans contributing to the world, or just animals chasing profit? The source material ultimately challenges us to look way beyond just agriculture. It asks us to examine the philosophical depth of our own daily motives. Like, are you operating from a place of genuine contribution, or have you become a mere speculator in your own life? It's a striking perspective on economics, nature, and human intention. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it gave you something deeply meaningful to think about. Keep learning and stay focused.